Hello, everyone. So welcome to this informational session for the Cornell Global Pre-Law program. I'm going to tell you a bit about the program today. I'll cycle back and cover all of this information that you see on the PowerPoint. My plan is going to be to wait until the end to take questions, just so that we can move through all the key information at a somewhat quicker pace, and then people who want to linger and ask questions at the end can do so. The one thing I'll also mention is this is a program that's designed for Cornell students and students from other universities. So along the way, I'm going to try to say a few things that are catered toward non-Cornell audiences as well. My agenda for the day is going to be to move through this information, to talk first a bit about who the program is aimed for, some of its goals, allow you to get a little bit of sense of what the rhythm will be. You can probably figure out just looking at the website that this is not a standard summer session class. This is a program with a series of different components that intersect. So I'm going to try to explain some of that for people who might be a little confused about what exactly this is. And then at the end, I'll also talk a little bit about myself, since you will get to study with me if you participate in this. And I'll remind people at the end, but we are really trying to get a gauge for how we're going to arrange this. So it's really important, if you are at all interested in actually enrolling in the program this summer, please do respond to the informational email that you're going to get in the next couple of days. It's really important that you do that if you get a chance. So to start, this is a brand new program. It's a pioneering advance in legal education, and especially pre-law education. It's the first program of its kind that is designed to give pre-law students, whether undergrads or graduates in other programs, an introduction to legal experience without actually going to law school. So it's meant to give you a background and some preliminary skill sets in succeeding in law school for people who haven't yet showed up. One of the reasons it's maybe a little confusing to people who are just starting to learn about this program is there are really three components to it. One component, the most time-consuming in certain respects, is the 4 different units, all of which deal with global law, that will be actually taught by 4 different Cornell Law School professors. So one of the cool things about the program that I'll say more about is that it's a chance to interact with 4 different Cornell Law School faculty who are teaching kind of mini courses or mini units of the program on subject matters that are tied to their areas of expertise. The second component is a series of small group sessions that are designed to help people develop skill sets for success in law school. I'm going to talk about a lot about that in a second. And the third component is actually help getting into law school. So advice and advising that continues after the duration of the actual summer program. And again, I'm going to return to talk in a minute about how all of these intersect. It's confusing at first blush. But first, who should enroll? In a way, we've designed this program for a whole range of people's interests. First category of people, anyone who knows they want to go to law school, but is worried about getting a leg up, getting in. We all know it's not easy to get into a top law school. The program is designed to help you build your CV, get to know potential references, law school professors, get to know other people who are interested in going to law school, and be able to say on your CV, on your transcript, that you've taken a real law school class. So this is an excellent way for people to sort of fill out their profile, enhance their range of experiences in order to look a bit more attractive to a law school admissions committee. So if you'd like to give yourself a leg up, a great way to do so. And again, I'll simply say for students who are not Cornell undergrads, you will get a Cornell transcript at the end of the summer. So a great way to get, again, exposure to a Cornell Law School community and environment before you actually go. So first category. Second category, anyone who knows they want to go to law school but are worried about how they're going to do once they get there. The vast majority of what you'll be doing this summer is actually honing and developing, building your study skills, your exam taking skills, all of these things that lead to grades in law school. Third category, anyone who is on the fence about law school. As you all probably know, law school is a pretty huge decision for financial reasons and otherwise. So if you're not sure if you're going to like it, not sure if you really find legal questions interesting, this would be a great way to kind of dip your toe in the swimming pool and find out if it's really your thing. And again, at a relatively low cost and low time commitment than actual law school. So if you're on the fence, you want to learn more about what law school is like, I think you'd have a great time this summer doing this. And then I would say just a fourth category of people is anybody who can't wait to think about legal questions. The 4 units in the course are all independently fascinating and rewarding. So even if you want to learn about a series of legal issues from a global and international perspective, the different material you'll be studying and engaging with is truly engrossing. So I think this will be a fascinating program for people to engage in. So who's it for? All sorts of different people. I want to break the program down again, since I know it's a little confusing, and talk about why we designed the program this way. Basically, the program is intentionally geared to have 2 different things happening together alongside one another in tandem. The meat and potatoes, in a way, are these 4 units, each of which is devoted to a different area of global or international law, and you'll be acting like a real law student in many ways in those 4 units. They're kind of mini courses, I think, is one way to think about them. You'll attend, there'll be dialogue, discussion. I'm not sure if they'll actually impose the Socratic method, probably not. And at the end of each of those 4 units, you'll also take 4 mini exams. Now, I say mini exams because the exams are not the kind of demanding thing you would actually take in law school, but nevertheless are a laboratory in the style of thought that law school exams require. So this is basically a way to acquaint yourself with the law school exam format outside of the pressure of actual law school. Those units, again, we'll talk a little bit more. There are basically 2 mini courses or mini seminars during the first 2 weeks of this program. There's a break, and then 2 mini courses in the second half of the program. So that, in a way, is, again, the meat and potatoes of the program. But the way we've designed this is to have these 4 mini classes happening alongside a series of small group seminars that are basically designed to unpack what's going on in the more standard law school environment that you're going to be exposed to. So why do we construct the program this way? I'm sure that anyone who's thought about going to law school has heard many tales about how challenging, especially the first year, can be. Why is that the case? Law school can have something of a sink or swim feel about it. It used to be much worse. It's not that bad anymore. But nevertheless, there's a way in which you show up at law school and you're thrown off the deep end and you have to learn how to swim on your own. The other analogy I like to use is that it's like full immersion in a language course where you don't yet know a word of the language. It's kind of like learning a new language, learning how to think like a lawyer, in ways that most students, when they show up at law school, have no background and no experience in. So the learning curve at the beginning of law school can feel incredibly steep. Nobody tells you how to brief a case. Nobody tells you how to prepare for a cold call. It's when you get randomly called on through the Socratic method. Nobody tells you how to take notes. Nobody tells you how to take an exam. All of these things don't come naturally to the vast majority of people who go to law school. This is why there are these famous films like The Paper Chase, it's a terrible film actually, but about first year of law school. So what is our goal this summer? It is to take the learning curve out, to flatten the learning curve so that you would show up at the beginning of your first year already having mastered that range of skill sets. So in this smaller seminar that you're going to be part of, alongside the real law classes, will be activities devoted to each of these different skill sets. On the vast majority of days, we'll simply meet and say, what was confusing? What didn't make sense? What just happened in class? Did anyone know what they were talking about? We'll debrief, try to bring each other up to speed. And beyond that, we're going to devote parts of different days to each of these activities. Things like briefing cases. And rather than to be doing things like learning how to brief cases in the abstract, we'll be doing them in real time, so to speak. We'll be sort of almost like doing parts of our homework together, trying to figure out what's actually going on in these other classes and bringing our skill sets up to speed with reference to actual content that we all have in common. On the days close to one of the mini exams, the professors responsible for that material will come to meet with us. They'll do things like explain what they look for in an exam, explain how they construct an exam, what is a law school exam, and then after the fact, after you take these tests, they will meet with us again and go over the possible answers. So rather than having to wait to get your grade, you'll find out right away how you did and have had that amazing experience before you start up the second 2 units of the program. Again, it's a great way to get to know faculty members. And again, you guys have all heard the phrase before that law school is first and foremost about learning how to think like a lawyer. If all goes well, by the end of the summer, you'll be able to say that, yes, you know how to think like a lawyer. You know how to go about tackling problems with these very distinctive approaches that law school is all about teaching one. One of the reasons when I began putting together this program along with a few other professors, one of the reasons I was so excited about it had to do with my own experience as a 1L in law school and the sense of utter discombobulation as to what was even going on. So this is exactly the kind of program that I wish I had back in the day, and that frankly I would recommend to pretty much anybody planning to go to law school. As I mentioned, the other really cool thing that we'll be doing this summer is a special session with the law school admissions office, the director of admissions here at Cornell Law School. You're probably all aware as well that the sheer process of trying to get into a top law school can feel utterly mystifying. What are they looking for? What on earth should a personal statement say? So one of the things we'll be doing this summer is also taking some preliminary steps to thinking about your applications and also getting an inside read on what admissions offices are actually after. If you want to have the profile of the candidate, of someone who's going to get into a place like Cornell, the goal is to get inside information from them about what you should actually be doing. So not only will we be demystifying the skill set that leads to success once you're in law school, we'll be doing something similar with the application and admissions process. This overwhelming thing, unpacking the different components and helping you guys get started over the summer. And as I said before, one of the things that really matters are these things known as recommendation letters. And the whole purpose of exposing you to and allowing you guys to develop relationships with not just one professor at Cornell Law, but 4 different faculty members is so that you can perform well in their classes, get to know them, and be in a position where they can serve as much longer term mentors in the future. So let me get a sip of water for a second and talk a little bit more about what the summer would actually be like. As I was saying, there are these 2 interconnected parts of the program. Oops, I'm a little too far. The way we've set it up is that afternoons, there will be the you'll have 2 different units. So you'll meet with one professor, and the first part of the afternoon, another mini class with another professor and the other half of the afternoon. And then every 2 to 3 days, the small group seminar will meet. And during the small group seminar, we'll be doing the sorts of activities I just called your attention to, and getting ready for class that afternoon. So the days will have a different and varying rhythm to them. If you're worried about having a summer that feels a bit monotonous because you just go to one class every day, the same hour, that will not be the case with this. You'll have 4 different mini courses that have their own arc, a pause in the middle of the semester where you take shortened, abbreviated exams, again, that are meant to emulate a real law school exam. And then those kinds of cycles, I think, will really make the Zoom experience and the general feel of the summer feel really exciting. The other function of the small group seminars is precisely to create a more intimate personal environment where we can have down-to-earth, direct, honest, low-stakes conversations about everything we've been learning. So they're meant to be a place where we can let our guard down, no question is so stupid, that kind of dynamic where we can really unpack what's going on. So as I was saying, the way we set up the program was to arrange it into 4 different units. Basically, each of these units is taught by a different law school professor, and they're intended to give you perspectives on 4 different areas of international or comparative law. So what will those units be? If you're interested in the actual subject matter you'll be learning about, the first unit is on comparative legal studies. What do we gain by thinking about different legal cultures alongside one another? For instance, if we care about constitutional law in the United States, what do we learn by thinking about the United States Constitution against the South African Constitution or the French Constitution? So what are the different questions that people ask by analyzing different legal systems alongside one another? We obviously learn a lot about local cultures by way of their legal systems. What can that comparative analysis tell us about different legal systems? Professor Mitchell Lasser will be teaching that unit. He's also the director of, there's, believe it or not, a law school half to this program that's catered toward law students. And he's the director of that half of the program. Second unit will be on international governance, including business relations, if you want to get a sense for what it would mean to do business law internationally. This will be a great window on that. And it thinks about the different systems that lead to international compliance, standardization in different legal areas. Really fascinating class that's taught by Professor Brian Richardson. And the second half, 2 units, one on constitutional legal questions, but from the perspective of freedom of speech and religion, in a way there is no more hot and controversial, contentious area of law right now. In the United States, we're seeing the parameters of freedom of speech change radically. And some of these issues become particularly vexed when religious freedom and questions of secularism are on the table. So Professor Nelson Tebby, who's a First Amendment scholar, is going to teach that unit, which I think will be absolutely fascinating. Thinking of some of the most, again, controversial questions in constitutional law right now. And then the fourth unit, as you guys probably figured out, I teach this small group session where we do all of the debriefing and study skills and that good stuff. I also teach one of the 4 substantive units, and the one that I teach is on international human rights and theory and practice. So we're going to think about the evolution of human rights. Why did the United Nations decide to draft and agree upon a universal declaration of human rights in the aftermath of World War II? And what are some of the more controversial issues in human rights today? We'll obviously talk about things like refugees and immigration, but that will overview a series of topics, again, tied to international human rights issues. So if you go to law school, when you go to law school, all of, especially your first year material, will be doctrinal areas of law within the United States system. I actually teach one of those 1L classes here at Cornell Law School. I teach contracts for 1Ls. Your first year, you'll do things like torts, civil procedure, property. You'll get plenty of that when you show up in law school. So we intentionally devised this summer program as an occasion for people to explore other topics that won't be covered in those first year classes. The international student body that we envision, or the student body that we envision, will also be international with students from around the world. So the classroom dynamic will be really exciting from that perspective too. Students from Europe, from South America, we also anticipate being in the program. So this chance to explore some of these really important international issues with a group of peers who are going to approach them from different perspectives is one of the reasons that this is a program in global law rather than simply American law. So as you guys probably figured out, this program in a way is an investment. It's going to be an intensive program. That's one of the things that's exciting about it. It's meant to really bring you up to speed, prepare you to show up in law school and hit the ground running. But that does mean that we'll work hard this summer. I think it'll be exciting. Some of your days will be occupied almost entirely with the program except for evenings. But this is kind of what your average daily schedule would look like. It does open with a couple of orientation sessions that will give you the big picture on legal issues as well. Just to clarify, one of the questions I always get is, how do these exams work? What do you mean we're taking 4 different exams? Let me reiterate, these are brief exams that are designed to give you a chance to try your skills at taking an exam that's going to be a lot like a law school exam, and you will be awarded a grade for each of those. However, your final grade will be a bundling of them. Of course, these exams are graded as they should be for an undergraduate. The law school faculty aren't going to expect you to perform as well as a law student. They're going to expect you to perform at the level of your current education. People with no exposure to actual legal study yet But if you're thinking, wait, I'm going to have a transcript, what's that grade going to look like? That's where your grade will come from. It'll come from a bundling of these 4 different mini tests, short tests that you take. Why 4? Law school exams can be very different. It's a chance to expose you to a range of different styles and a chance for you to really hone and practice your skill set, so that it's not just a one-off. You have 4 different chances to try your hat at this genre of exam taking that's quite unusual. So let me tell you a little bit about myself before we kind of start to wrap things up and have time for questions. I'm somebody who went to a small liberal arts school, so a much smaller school than Cornell, and went to law school fresh out of my undergrad experience. So I'd gone from a series of small seminar-like classes where rarely was I in a class with more than 25 or 30 other students. And I showed up at University of Chicago Law School. And on the one hand, I absolutely loved it. On the other, I didn't know what hit me. I'd never been in a classroom environment like that. And I've spent a lot of time since thinking about what I wish I would have known before I'd showed up. In a way, that's what this program is. It's the things, we think you should know before you go to law school, before you show up at law school. After graduating from law school, I worked on Wall Street, first at a big Chicago law firm and then a big New York law firm, basically practicing banking and structured finance. So investment deals, my clients were all big banks, and investment deals, creating kinds of financing, some very complicated financing for corporations. So I have Wall Street, big law background that I like to draw upon. And after practicing for a few years, I went back to get a PhD. So I actually teach both in the law school, where, to reiterate, I teach a 1L first year contracts class, one of the big doctrinal classes. It's always the first exam that the 1Ls have. And then I also teach in the English department here at Cornell. A lot of my scholarship thinks about the relationship between legal matters and literary matters. I care very much about why art, film, novels help us think about matters of social justice and legal questions. But I work with both law students and undergraduates, including freshmen, and I do a ton of pre-law advising. And I also think a lot about that transition from undergrad to law school. That's one of the transitions I'm hoping we can make easier for you guys by way of what we do this summer. But one of the reasons that I'm directing this program and teaching in it is precisely because my area of expertise is thinking about the kind of pre-law and beginning law student and what it takes to succeed. So, and this is, I have to show you a picture of my new pandemic puppy, Cedric. If we're lucky, Cedric will probably have to join us for at least some of our classes, at least a few minutes. Couldn't resist showing him to you guys. Puppies are so important. So just to reiterate, I obviously think that this program is a great investment for all sorts of reasons and for a whole collection of different reasons. It's a great investment because it'll help you succeed in law school. Law school grades really matter. This program is designed, again, to help you do better once you get there. It's a great investment if you're worried about getting into law school. It'll enhance your CV and your transcript. You'll be able to say that you've studied in a program and taken real law school classes. Again, mini classes, don't get me wrong, but you'll be able to say you've had that experience and succeeded, right? If you get an A on one of these exams, you can say, hey, I got an A on a real law school exam. It'll be a great chance to get to know other pre-law students, other people like you who are thinking about going to law school, maybe daunted by the application process or not. So if you're like me, when I was an undergrad, I didn't have other friends who were going to law school. This will be a great way for you to establish a community of peers who have a similar career trajectory in mind. This is a great way to become part of the Cornell Law School community, whether you're currently at Cornell or at another university. You'll get to be part of that universe, get to know other law school faculty, and those types of mentoring relationships can be hugely important, not only for more strategic things like getting recommendation letters, which of course matter, but simply for developing long-term relationships and types of mentorship, whether mentorship about where should I go to law school, or the types of issues you're going to confront and encounter when you're practicing as a lawyer. So I can't stress enough the types of mentorship that this program is really designed to cultivate. It's of course a 4.5, 5-week program over the summer, but it's really meant to give you guys relationships that can endure into the future and help you succeed over these next couple of years of your life, if you're thinking about law school, since those years are so crucial in determining kind of the long-term outlook of a legal career. As I mentioned, this is a super new program, which is why we're so excited about it. I simply wanted to put on the board a couple testimonials from students who were part of our first batch of students. Since I think that it's nice to hear other people than just me and their words about the program, what I'm actually going to do now is pause, and if people have questions, I think you may need to put them in the chat function. So if you do have questions, we can try to unmute you otherwise. If you'd like to verbally pose a question, please raise your hand, and then I can go and unmute you and you can actually speak. Because this is a webinar, we're not able to show faces just for confidentiality and privacy reasons. And if you feel more comfortable posing a question in the chat function, you can also type it up and convey it to us that way. I wanted to reiterate to end that if you are thinking about the program, potentially interested in it, it's super, super important that you reply to the email and let the summer program know that you're interested. We're trying to gauge numbers and all of that good stuff. So please, please, please do reply to that email. That would be extremely helpful to us. And if you have questions that come up that you don't want to pose in either chat or ask, or that occur to you tomorrow, you can absolutely email those either to the School of Continuing Education. All of that information is right on the website, or you're welcome to email me as well. So please don't hesitate to follow up with questions. I do see one hand, Glenda, right? I'll unmute. I think I need to promote you to panelist. So if you want to have your camera off, that's fine, okay? But you should be able to unmute yourself now, Glenda, if you wanted to ask a question. You know how to unmute, hang on. Let's see. Again, I think that you should be able to pose the question, Glenda. If not, feel free to put it in chat. In the meantime, if you have a question about how to apply, the email address is cusp@cornell.edu. People have sometimes asked how the course is, the program rather, is priced. It's priced simply per credit at Cornell. So you're not paying more or less than you would for any other summer program, even though you're getting all of these different things bundled into this one. Another reason I think it's a really great investment, that you're getting not just one, but all sorts of different dimensions of the program. I see, Glenn, did you want to try once more? I don't want to cut you off if you're trying to ask a question. And as I believe the email indicated, we are also going to be posting this informational session online right away. So if you have friends who couldn't make the session but want to learn more about it, you can absolutely send them a link to this webinar, and then they can watch, follow up with questions, all of that good stuff. The same is obviously true for parents. If your parents are like, what on earth is that? You can also share with them a link to the webinar, and they can learn a little bit more about it. Again, it's not your standard summer class, so it's understandable to be a little confused about all these moving parts and how they intersect. Any other questions?
Hi, everybody. I'm Shelley. I am at Cornell, and I work more on the administrative side of things. So if you have questions about how to apply, what the process is, then definitely email us at sce.cornell.edu, and I'll also put our website in the chat. And Glenda, if you have a question, certainly put it into the chat and we'll answer that for you. Liz, I wondered, you talked a bit about letters of recommendation that students will get. Does that come from all the professors, or is it from somebody that they get, mentors, or how does that work?
That's a great question. I can tell you what the students who were part of the first session a couple of years ago, the first program a couple of years ago did. What we advised them to do was to look at these 4 grades and say, which class did I do the best in? Which of these 4 units did I do the best in? And then to ask that particular faculty member for a letter, because that faculty member would then be in a position to say, so-and-so got an A on my exam, they raised their hand all the time, they had smart things to say. Usually when you apply to law school, you have 3 recommendation letters. So, and they want to see different types of recommenders. But this can be a great way, again, to have such a letter from an actual law school professor who can compare you to other entering law students in your abilities. I think that kind of letter could actually really stand out and enhance an application.
Great, yeah, that's fantastic. Can you also just chat a little bit more about the different faculty? We learned a little bit about them, but maybe some of their specialties and expertise. And if you're not necessarily interested in international law long term, are these things, what the things you might get from them and some of their...
Yeah, 2 of the professors also teach constitutional law to 1Ls, to first-year law students here at Cornell. So they're Professor Nelson and Professor Richardson. They're very used to working with entering law students and teaching constitutional law in an American setting. Professor Richardson just started here a couple years ago. Professor Nelson is a bit more of an established scholar. And again, he works on First Amendment jurisprudence and especially questions of religion and law. He's a common contributor to various blogs and media outlets. And then Professor Lasser is an expert in comparative law and especially the French legal system and the European Union. So he just finished a book on the kind of crisis of the European Union and what's happening to it, and this fear of the courts that's actually contributing to Euroscepticism is the term. So intentionally a range of interests that you'll get from them. But again, the goal, all law professors are different, just like your professors now are all totally different. So one of the reasons that we've broken this into 4 units that are taught by different people is to allow you to have access to different styles, different ways of teaching, different ways of approaching the law. So you're not just getting one version of how do law professors think, you're going to get 4 different versions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for answering that question. It looks like Glenda or Maud is asking a question. She may have some conflicts during the time this course is offered. Should she apply?
Absolutely. The virtue of, I mean, if you told me you were going to be gone for 2 weeks, we'd have to talk. But the virtue of Zoom that you've already probably experienced is that classes can be recorded. And as in the rest of life, if you have a prior obligation and need to miss a class, so be it. The other virtue of Zoom is that you can be anywhere and Zoom into a class. But again, if one of those conflicts happened to coincide with when an exam was scheduled, we'd maybe need to do some fancy footwork. But if you have that few of a number of conflicts, by all means, don't let that be an impediment to applying. That's exactly the kind of thing that could be easily worked out with faculty, and we'd probably even be able to get you recordings of, or we would definitely be able to get you recordings of the particular sessions that you happen to miss. So yeah, do not let that be a deterrent. Especially, I don't know about you guys, but I know I'm doing this summer, but other than that, my summer feels like it's totally up in the air, just because the pandemic has made everybody's plans so last minute. Again, Zoom means that we can travel and still be part of something like this. But don't let scheduling uncertainties prevent you from joining this. We can always work around, a conflict there, a conflict there.
Great. How many credits will students earn in this course?
It's 4, am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so you'll get 4
I now just looked, yes. Thank you for confirming that though.
That's one of the reasons we've divided into 4 units too. In a way, each of the units is about as much work as a credit would be. And in terms of the workload, I would expect to have maybe 2 hours of work every night, give or take, maybe less, depends how fast you read. So not onerous. It's meant to be a manageable summer program that's simultaneously intensive in the amount of new experiences and the amount of learning that you're doing, but not unmanageable. Do we have any other questions?
If I was just going to say once again, if students do have questions about the application process or anything that's related to signing up for the course, I will be sending out an email with a link to this webinar plus contact information, and also to the time that you need to get in touch with us if you are planning to apply. It's important since this is a newer program and we need to gauge our, our student numbers and things like that. So we definitely need your feedback on that. That would be fantastic. So look out for that email. It'll be coming probably first thing tomorrow morning.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for attending. And please reach out if you have questions. And I hope to see some of you this summer on Zoom. I think it'll be a great summer. And in the meantime, good luck with, I know you guys are finishing class, many of you, and gearing up for exams. So good luck with these next couple of weeks. And please don't hesitate to forward the link to the webinar to other people who might want to see it, okay? Okay, thank you, everybody.